Alright, moving on to the respiratory system. We have our trachea right there, and then where it broadens out a bit right at the top here and almost forms a little bit of a box, that would be our larynx. And you should have, when you dissected your cat, cut open the larynx. And this is going to be quite difficult to show, but inside the larynx, you'll find your vocal cords. Yeah, this might just be a little difficult to make sense of, but the vocal cords are sort of in this area, I guess in the middle of the larynx, and they're around the edge, so there is a small slit or opening between the vocal cords, and that's the glottis. So the small slit or opening between the vocal cords is the glottis, and then at the top of the larynx, above the glottis, again, I'm sorry, I know this will be impossible to see on the video, but there should be a little flap right there, which is the epiglottis. So the epiglottis is going to close over the glottis when you're eating, and thus food will be traveling down into your esophagus down there instead of entering down into your windpipe, which is ideal, so very functional. And finally, the thyroid cartilage, you can see just around the larynx there, those rings of cartilage there. And of course the trachea traveling all the way down from the larynx into the lungs eventually. And it's very difficult to see this clearly on the cat, but the trachea will come down and it's going to branch off, one to the right, one to the left, for the lobes of your lungs on either side. That first division is the primary bronchi. Then those primary bronchi are going to divide again, and those next divisions are the secondary bronchi, and then finally those are all going to divide again, and that next division, those are called the tertiary bronchi. So I'm not even going to try to explain that on the cat here, but that's something that you would benefit from looking at a model or simply getting a Google image of that. As long as you understand that concept there, we have our trachea, first division, primary bronchi, next divisions, secondary bronchi, and then the divisions off of those are the tertiary bronchi. And those are all leading into our lungs. So there's multiple lobes of the lung on either side of the heart there. And finally, again on the list, we've already covered it, is our muscular diaphragm at the bottom there. Okay, lab number 6, the circulatory system. I'm going to go over a few things on the cat, and then we'll take a quick look at a model of the heart. So, external anatomy of the heart. We have our right atrium right there, and the right ventricle, that section right there, our left atrium right there, and the left ventricle right there. So if we pop open the heart, just take a quick look. Again, this would be our right ventricle, left ventricle, left atrium at the very top, and right atrium at the very top there. If you imagine the heart like an upside down mountain, that being the point, and that is the base of the mountain, this is in fact the base of the heart, and then where it comes to a point there, that's called the apex. The pulmonary trunk is going to exit out of our right ventricle. So again, our right ventricle, and then coming up out of here, you can see it starts to thin out right there. That is the pulmonary trunk. And the aorta you can see right there our aortic arch. So the thoracic aorta is coming right out of our left ventricle there, and then it's going to branch off and it's going to continue down into the abdominal aorta. So aortic arch coming up, our thoracic aorta is then branching off into the left subclavian and the brachiocephalic artery, but we'll go over those again. And then it's going to continue down into the abdominal aorta. The anterior and posterior vena cava, so our main vein, right here would be on the cat the anterior vena cava, and on humans it would be the superior vena cava. And then traveling downwards would on the cat be the posterior vena cava, and on humans the inferior vena cava. So as far as internal anatomy of the heart is concerned, we'll take another look at this on the heart model, but you can see the interventricular septum quite clearly here on the heart. And you'll notice that the muscular walls around the left ventricle are much thicker than those around the right ventricle. That's because the left ventricle is pumping blood to the systemic circulation, so essentially to your entire body, whereas the right ventricle is only really responsible for pumping blood out to the lungs. So the muscular walls there don't have to be as strong and powerful. And I believe that's it. The rest of it we will cover on the heart model.